All right, let's jump right in. We're talking about a director who, get this, became even more famous than his own stars. A true icon of cinema whose very name is basically the definition of suspense. We're talking, of course, about Alfred Hitchcock. You know the silhouette, right? That iconic shape, the name, the music. Even if you've never actually sat through one of his movies, you know the brand. That portly profile, the super dry voice, those unforgettable, chilling scores. See, Hitchcock wasn't just a director. No way. He was a marketing genius who made himself the living, breathing symbol of his genre. And what's really amazing about this quote here is the date, 1939. This isn't some look-back assessment from decades later. This was written the very year he packed his bags for Hollywood. The world already knew they were dealing with someone special, a filmmaker on a whole other level. But that's the real question, isn't it? How does a kid from London, the son of a grocer, become the master of suspense? Well, that's the journey we're going to take. And it doesn't start on a movie set. It starts in a quiet suburb with a few childhood moments that would define everything. To really get Hitchcock's films, you have to get Hitchcock's fears. And his biggest, deepest fears, they were forged when he was very, very young. This is maybe the story from his childhood. His own father, as a way to teach him a lesson for some small thing he did, sent him to the local police station with a note. The officer reads it and locks the 5-year-old boy in a jail cell. Just for a few minutes, but still, can you even imagine how terrifying that must have been? And that fear, that terror, it never, ever left him. He later said he was scared stiff of anything to do with the law. He wouldn't even drive a car because he was so afraid of getting a parking ticket. And this is the key, that deep, personal trauma became his artistic trademark. And it works so well on us because it plugs right into a universal nightmare, right? The fear of being totally helpless against this big, faceless authority that you can't reason with. That feeling of being trapped, hunted, and nobody believes you, that is pure Hitchcock. And school didn't exactly help. He went to a Jesuit school where punishment involved a paddle, and you had to sit there all day just anticipating the pain. But on the flip side, he said the Jesuits also taught him some invaluable skills: organization, control, analysis. You know, the very tools you'd need to meticulously build a film, piece by piece. So you can see how the pieces start to come together. Long before he ever got to Hollywood, Hitchcock was already a huge deal in the British film industry. And he wasn't just making movies, he was pretty much inventing a whole new way of telling stories on screen. I mean, his rise was just incredible. He starts out in 1919 designing the text cards for silent movies. Just 8 years later, he directs The Lodger, which many people say is the first real Hitchcock picture. 2 years after that, he directs Blackmail, Britain's first ever movie with sound. And by 1935, The 39 Steps makes him a big name across the pond in the US. And it was during this time that he really perfected one of his most brilliant storytelling tricks, the MacGuffin. The genius of the MacGuffin is just how simple it is. It's the thing everyone in the movie is chasing, the secret plans, the jewels, whatever. But it doesn't actually matter what it is. It's just there to get the story moving so he can focus on what he really cares about, the characters, the tension, and the chase. The 39 Steps is a perfect example. Everybody's running around after these stolen airplane engine plans. But do we, the audience, care what the plans are for? Nope, not one bit. We just care about the thrill of the chase, the danger our hero is in. That's the MacGuffin doing its job perfectly. This film also gave us another classic Hitchcock ingredient. The actress Madeleine Carroll here, she became the prototype for what we all now call the Hitchcock blonde. You know the type. Cool, sophisticated, a little distant, and always gets swept up in the chaos. So, with a reputation like that, it was really only a matter of time before Hollywood came knocking. In 1939, he made the move to America, and what we now think of as the golden age of Hitchcock, well, it was about to begin. And talk about making an entrance. His very first film in America, Rebecca, doesn't just do okay. It wins the Academy Award for Best Picture. Right out of the gate, he proved he was in a league of his own. Then he directs Suspicion. This was a big deal because it was his first time as both director and producer, which gave him a ton more control. It was also his first film with the one and only Cary Grant. Fun fact, Hitchcock really wanted Grant's character to be a killer, but the studio shut it down. They were worried it would ruin Grant's charming image. And the man was always pushing the envelope. With Spellbound,
he dived deep into the trendy new world of psychoanalysis. And to bring a dream sequence to life, who do you think he hired? Only the master of surrealism himself, Salvatore Dali. I mean, come on, this wasn't just a movie, it was a piece of art.
But throughout all this incredible success, there was a secret weapon, a key collaborator who was right there beside him on almost every film, but whose name, sadly, a lot of people just don't know. His wife, Alma Reville. Hitchcock himself said it best. Alma was an amazing film editor and writer in her own right. He called her his closest collaborator, the first person he'd show anything to. Her impact on his work, it was just massive. So when all is said and done, what is the legacy of this master? How is it that his work hasn't just lasted, but has actually gotten more respected over the years? Well, here's something that'll kind of blow your mind. For all his fame and influence, he was nominated for Best Director 5 separate times. And how many times did he win? 0, not once. An absolute giant of the industry, repeatedly overlooked by the Academy. It's wild when you think about it. But you know what? The critics eventually made up for it. For literally half a century, Orson Welles' Citizen Kane was considered the undisputed greatest film of all time. But in 2012, in this really prestigious poll, it was knocked off the top spot by Hitchcock's 1958 thriller, Vertigo. His reputation had finally reached the absolute pinnacle. And really, this is the bottom line. His influence is so deep, so baked into the language of film, that we had to invent a word for it. Hitchcockian. We all know what it means. That specific kind of suspense, that visual style, that mood of paranoia. Countless filmmakers have been trying to capture it ever since. And that really just leaves us with one last thing to think about. The technology is old, the clothes are from another time, and yet when you watch one of his films today, your heart still pounds. The suspense is real. It just makes you wonder, what is the secret to making fear timeless?